We are learning the laws that are called Ela Opikoden. When you borrow something, what's the law? So we started in this book, there's four different kind of guardians, meaning relationships that we have to things that are not ours, right? So I could be a guardian of something getting paid, right? Someone's paying me to watch their phone, one kind of law. Or I'm a guardian and not getting paid to watch it. Or I'm renting this. It's also someone else's property that is now in my possession, right? That's a different law. And then there's a law of borrowing. If I borrow this, it's also someone else's. What is my responsibilities? What's the laws? So that's where we are right now. If you borrow. So we're in chapter 3. When a person borrows a cow from a colleague and the colleague sends it to him with his own son, his agent, or his servant, and it dies before it enters the borrower's domain, the borrower is not liable. The law applies even if the owner sends it with his son, the servant, the agent of the borrower. Right? Because the borrower is only responsible when he took possession of it. It's interesting that an agent doesn't. Yeah, so I was a little bothered with this. I see the commentators have a problem with it also. Aha, okay. Because um, an agent is like your own hand. When they act on your behalf, so they'll be acting for you, and therefore, um, when they get it in their possession, it's like you got it in your possession, and therefore you're responsible from that point on. But we're not talking about such an agent. We're talking about someone who kind of on their own went and did it without being appointed, right? Well, my friend went. Oh, yeah, I know my neighbor needs to pick up a cow from you, so I happen to be in the area, so I'll pick it up. So he's not appointed, so therefore his hand doesn't become the hand of the one who's borrowing, right? So since he's not liable if something happened, the cow dies until it comes into his domain, until he takes possession of it, then he becomes responsible. If the borrower tells the owner, send it to me with my son, with my servant and my agent, or even with my Hebrew servant or with your agent, the borrower is liable. Hebrew servant, because whatever the servant owns, right, is belongs to the master. So he's not really serving as an agent. That's it. I think so. 1 second. Just see that. No. Okay. Or if it's the other person, it's the lender, it's his agent. Immediately he's now, because he's told the owner, that they're acting on my behalf. The law also applies if the owner tells the borrower, I'm sending you with your son, with your servant, with the agent, with my son, Hebrew servant, or my agent. And if the borrower agrees, the borrower is liable if he sends it and it dies on the way. Right? He's responsible. If the owner sends the cow with his own Canaanite servant, the borrower is not liable. The cow dies on the way after it is sent. This law applies to borrower's consent. The rationale is the servant is considered as an extension of the master's physical being, thus the cow has never left the owner's domain. So the owner of the cow gave it to his Canaanite, right? So in that respect, no, because it's as if it stayed with the owner,
Mm.
right? It
Hmm.
never left the owner because the slave is the owner's. Interesting. Okay. Number two, the following rules apply. When a person borrows a cow from a colleague, the borrower tells the owner,
Switch it
switch it,
with a stick,
switch it with a stick, and it
and
will
it
come to me on its own accord. And the owner follows his instruction. The borrower is not liable until the cow enters his domain. If it dies on the way, he's not liable.
Okay.
Which, like, give it a little hit on the behind, right? So it's going to come to my domain, right? And it's going on its own. So what's the difference over here? There's no intermediary over here. There's no agent. There's no son. There's no servant, and so on and so forth, right? So there's just between the owner and the borrower, and they're just giving him a hit, like in the rear, that it's going to go on its own, right? So it does until it enters the borrower's domain. It still is belonging to the lender. So if it died on the way, he's not responsible. Got it? Similar laws apply when the borrower returns the animal to the owner. If he sends it with another person and it dies before it enters the owner's domain, he is liable because it's still in the borrower's responsibility. That makes sense. Simple. If he returned it with another person with the consent of the owner and it died, then he's not liable, right? In other words, have your servant or have your son or have your agent come and the borrower and the lender is okay about that. That means once it's given to that person, it's as if he's relinquished any responsibility. It's no longer his. It's, so to speak, in the hands of the owner. If he signed with his own canine servant and it died on the way, he is liable, even if the owner consented. The rationale is the servant is considered as an extension of the master's physical person. Thus, the cow has never left the borrower's domain. So it works the other way around too, right? Canine servant is the extension of the hand of. So therefore, if it's sent with him, it never left the domain of the borrower. Therefore, he's responsible until it comes into the domain of the lender. When does the above apply? When the borrower returned the animal during the time for which it was lent out. If, however, it returns it after the end of the time for which it was lent out, he's not liable if it dies on the way. For once the time for which it was lent out has concluded, the laws of borrowing no longer apply. And the person who had borrowed the animal is now considered a paid watchman. Let's say you borrowed it for 3 days. Now, after 3 days, you're no longer considered a borrower, but you're like a paid watchman. Uh, Therefore, the animal taken captive or dies in the period in which it was lent out has concluded. The person who had borrowed the animal is not liable. Similar laws applies in analogous situations. Wow. I don't understand this. Why that would be, because he's lesser responsible. He should have returned it. He's lesser responsible. Not clear why. It's about categories, but still not clear on that.